Hey everybody, welcome back. This is going to be really hard for me to keep nice and short and sweet. My guest, my new friend, so I met her at this amazing event, Move to Millions, that I was at just a couple of
Mhm.
weeks ago. Hayya and her husband ended up sitting to my left, and I was immediately like, who is this luminous, amazing creature? And I'm gonna let her introduce herself in a second, but I want you to know I thought we were officially kin when I found out she
Yeah.
started her major career. Now she's into real estate and women and investing and money, and we'll talk about it. But she started in television production like me. And it's the equivalent of service people. If you've been in the military, if you find out
hmm
someone who's been in the military, you know you have some shared experiences and values.
Yes.
And thank you to all of our service people. It's not quite the same, but also if you've worked a lot of 14-hour days, if you know, you know. So this is Hayya Lee-McDonald.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks for being here.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I am so excited. And I totally am on board with you with that kin thing because I really just felt that, the moment we met and started talking. A little bit about me. So I am the co-founder of Next Chapter Property Solutions with my husband. Yes, 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 yes. And we are a real estate investing firm. So we help people who are in distress and it's relating to real estate. We work a lot with people who've experienced loss and death in their family. And so we bring solutions to them where they think there isn't one, and we actually help them to put a lot of money into their hands and help to build wealth as well. We also teach women how to build wealth using real estate, either doing it themselves or being a lender or passively, etc. So I am on a mission. You talked about serving when we were in the media space. I think my goal has always been to serve in some way, shape, or form. The vehicle just changes. So we serve now and help people to enhance their lives through our work in real estate investing.
I think that is so cool. And I have to introduce you. I have a private client and she owns 40 houses, 40.
Uh,
And we've
uh,
chatted about
uh-huh.
it's obviously that is a family business, but she has
Mm,
taken over and grown hugely. And I think um, women in real estate, it just makes so much sense to me. And it's also fascinating to me that that's a ramble. I'm gonna skip it. It's fascinating to me that it's sort of this newish, growing-ish market. And I'm like, it makes perfect sense.
yeah,
Like she's built
yeah,
this and it just boomed. And it's like, right, because she's a married mom, because she can juggle all these things. She's very content to speak with whether the people who are renting, the bankers, the contractors, the neighbor,
right.
the auction to get the houses, all these different languages that women are so good.
You're so right about that because, and my husband is, well, there are now two men on the team. But our whole team is women, and he also agrees, like when we're making calls and talking to sellers and all these different stakeholders, he said, women are really uniquely qualified to talk to these sellers who are facing situations because I always say, look, if you have ever dealt with a spouse or your mother or you're responsible for someone, you know how to negotiate, you know how to deal with all of the same things. It's just a different avenue, same things. And we just innately can deal with that stuff and
I
do
love
it well.
I love that you said that. Like we can
Hmm.
innately deal with it and do it well. So much
Yeah.
of my work as a mindset coach, ultimately, it's always amazing to me when I have moms come to me and they say I really want to grow my business. I just don't know if I can. I have a client who's like, I've been a stay-at-home mom for, 15 years and I have 4 children and I don't know if I can run my business. And I'm like, you've been running a business,
Hmm.
been running like you have
Yeah.
literally been a CEO. We're just going to shift the playground,
Right.
say it's a business, but like everything you've been doing, moving
Hmm.
around all these different projects, moving the money, moving the schedules, handling the schedules, client
Yeah.
satisfaction. If the clients are your kids and your husband, that's not different. It's all
Yeah.
transferable skills.
And I'd say that's probably being a mom. Well, the job is probably easier than being a mom because,
I love that you said that. Speak to that
yeah.
because I think it's interesting. Speak to why do you think it's easier?
Because these are people you have to live with them, right? And your actions, whatever you choose to do, they might end up hating you, right? But you still have to live with them. Your clients, you can do the deal, do whatever you're doing, and leave.
Yep.
You cannot leave with your family. I mean, you can, but most people really would choose not to.
I like that you said that, and I'm going to be contradictory for funsies because I agree.
Hmm.
I think it is easier, and I don't have a husband and kids, so speculation
Hmm.
on my part. I
Hmm.
think for so many people, it's an identity shift because
Yeah.
family, there's this love and worthiness that's inherent, and there's so
Hmm.
much. unworthiness because we haven't seen
Yeah.
so many women making money. We haven't, I mean, we've seen it, but it has not been normalized as the most
Hmm.
obvious thing. And I think there's this, um, I like to call it the fraud factor, only to bring shock
Hmm.
value to imposter syndrome, because I feel
Yeah.
like everyone just hears those words and is like, I know I have it, it doesn't matter. And
It's cliched right now. Yeah.
it's like, no, you definitely have it, because
Yeah.
if you're going to spend any amount of your experience, your excellence, your time, your talents, and it's taking you away from your family or your
Hmm.
couch, it needs to be compensated. And so often
Yeah.
I have clients who bring in this sort of like, well, I wanted to be helpful. And I'm like, that's why you charge them money, so
Hmm.
that you can be helpful not only to them, but to yourself, to the community, to the family, to everybody.
Right. And, I love that you mentioned time because that's one of the things when I'm also working with women, I think I want them to understand time, forget the money. The time is the most valuable asset you have because you know what? You can't get it back. And so when you give your time to someone, this thing and that thing, you do need to be compensated in some way, right? Some way that is of value to you because you cannot get your time back. And, frankly speaking, as women, we get older, hormones change and all these things. So we don't have time to waste, on stuff that doesn't give us something back that enhances our lives. So, and, I think part of the problem too, you probably see this a lot. I think a lot of women think that might be greedy, when they're
Mhm.
asking for something in return
Mhm.
because it feels selfish. And I think society kind of primes us to have that idea that, oh, you're just supposed to fit this role and don't ask for anything more than what that role provides.
Mhm. I think it's greedy not to be paid,
Hmm. Yeah.
because it's my favorite example, and many of my clients are coaches and consultants. I have others, but like that's 80%.
Hmm.
The idea generally, not always, but women, very often women of color, the idea that like, well, I need to be helpful. I'm like, it is greedy, because it's like you're satisfying your need for validation from someone else, and that's supposed to
Hmm.
be between you and God. And
Hmm.
I work on this too, so everyone knows, but it's like, you're outsourcing your
Hmm.
validation, greedy. And then number two, I'm like, you're undercutting the market. If you're in a position where you quote don't need to be paid, I've had clients, like, I don't need to be paid.
Hmm.
We're well financially. And I'm like, cool, but you're undercutting the market. What about the
Yeah.
person who does need to be paid? And you're yet another person normalizing free to far too cheap pricing. Like that is unfair
Yeah.
to everyone
Yep.
else who's like, I want to build a career doing this.
Right. And then, there's the other concept too. I think what you said is hits the nail on the head. I think the other concept too is when when people have to invest something to get what they want, they're more engaged in the outcome. They participate and they don't like drop it because, oh, you know, I'm bored now or I'm uncomfortable or whatever. They paid for something. And
Yes.
so they're likelier to stick it out. So if you now are giving your gift and it's free because I just want to serve and I don't want to be greedy, well, you're probably not getting the best client either. The work that you just gave to them, they're probably going to like drop it when they get tired of it because they didn't invest anything of value to themselves.
100%. Years ago, when I was brand new in coaching, I was in a mastermind, and my
Mm-hmm.
peer, my friend, but my peer was talking about, she had published, like helped publish books, and people were always wanting to pick her brain, take her out for
Mm-hmm.
coffee and pick her
Yeah.
brain. And she said yes. And I was like, you should charge $250 because you're spending like an hour and a half giving them, you guys, everybody buckle up, but it's like pearls before swine. You're giving them
Mm-hmm.
all the answers, and none of them
Mm-hmm.
are doing anything with it because they don't value it. They were just fucking around, and they just wanted to be like,
Right.
like, what would I do someday, possibly? Haha, it's so fun. I'm talking to someone. And
Mm-hmm.
she literally reported back in Mastermind, she let someone pick her brain over coffee, and that person did not pay for her coffee or bagel. I repeat,
Oh my
that
gosh.
person didn't even,
Not even coffee and a bagel?
right, like not even $7. And like it was this moment that she was like, never again. And the next time someone asked her, she was like, it's $250. And most people
Yeah.
said no, and one person said yes. And I was like, do you, just the way you said, like the investment, like whether or not they
Mm-hmm.
do anything, she literally gave them the keys to the kingdom for far
Yeah.
too little money. But the point is, it was worth her time. Like she felt good about that. That
Yeah.
person also got to be invested. Like, but I remember just
Yeah.
like, I'm still
Like,
flabbergasted. She was
what
like,
are you doing? Yeah. And, I'm not going to sit here and say that, hey, I've never done any of that stuff because when I first started my coaching business years ago, I don't have a coaching business now, but I think my first client, and I got really excited when I charged for a month of coaching, it was like $250. Right.
First,
That
first
was a good
sales, first sales though. First
sure,
sales, we have
but
wiggle room.
right, and we grow, but I distinctly realized the same thing that we're talking about when I had one client. She was very difficult to deal with. And I realized the 80/20 rule, the the 80% of your clients that are not paying and investing properly, or maybe the other way around. She was a headache worth 10 clients, and she was not paying me very much. So I had to drop her. And actually, she tried to, anyway, we won't go into that. But basically, the people who require the most of your energy are probably not your most valuable customers.
Yeah, we cut them away. And I actually love that
Yeah.
you just accidentally, perfectly dropped a reminder because guys, everyone knows, but like we're two women in business and I also just want to normalize. Sometimes there will be clients that are it's just not the right fit. Like that's in
Hmm.
every career. It doesn't mean you're a bad coach. It doesn't mean you're bad at whatever it is you do. Like it's some I mean, there's lots of patterns. We should always be looking at ourselves, but it's also like without fail, there will be clients that at some point you're like, no.
Hmm.
It's just
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? That's another problem you're touching on, our ability sometimes to say no. It's cliche, but no is a complete sentence. And you have to get comfortable saying it to, to whoever you need to say it to.
Mhm.
So, because the end result is if you can't learn how to say no, and I learned this, one of my team members years ago, she was not able to say no to all the people making demands of her, and
Mhm.
eventually it affected her work,
Mhm. Mhm.
and we had to let her go.
Best
But she,
example.
right, she eventually came back later, and we stayed in touch. She's like, I understand. I now understand what you said and why you had to let me go, and I learned how to say no. You will only burn yourself out if you don't learn how to say no.
And or
Yeah.
drop balls. That's the
Yeah.
best example. I
Hmm.
hired currently in trial against my father, who is
Hmm.
mentally incapacitated per the brain injury per the car accident. And
Hmm.
in the guardianship hearing, the lawyers that you have to have lawyers in the state of Texas to pursue
Hmm.
guardianship. Texas is
Hmm.
so into laws. And it has been a very turbulent adventure. And
Hmm.
it's been fascinating because my lawyer actually sent an email yesterday and BCC'd me on it. And I was like, she is fire. She is so
Hmm.
good. But over the previous couple of weeks, there have been so many ridiculous bad mistakes and
Oh
coming in at the
goodness.
11th hour, and I need this today. And it became clear to me she has too many clients. She doesn't have the right admin team. And it's so fascinating, especially having seen
Hmm.
the email she sent yesterday. Like, she is good at what she does, but no one
Yeah.
can have too much work and be good. And it's like, it's just fascinating because I don't know how this ends, but my point being, I'm like,
Hmm.
oh my God, I've seen this happen so many times when people can't say no
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
otherwise, I don't even want to say delegate, but like if in an attempt to be helpful,
Hmm.
we say yes, we stop being helpful. And
Yeah.
who I was 2 weeks ago was like, this is going to get a 1-star review. I don't know how to shake out. And it's like, not she's a bad person, but it's like, and that's how businesses can flounder,
Yeah.
lose
Yeah.
jobs when it's like, we were trying to be helpful, but what we ultimately did was disappoint everyone involved because we weren't able to work 24 hours a day at 100%.
Yeah.
That is not how humans do.
You know what? She probably has too many clients because she's not charging enough.
100%. And I will, no,
Yeah.
100%. I will tell you, it's been fascinating because I'm only almost 6 years into business, but I have
Hmm.
very consciously decided I don't give business coaching advice to people who haven't hired me or like we're friends.
Hmm.
And I used to like write notes and be like, this is what you should be doing. And now I'm like,
Mm-mm.
I've done that before. We're not
Yeah.
doing that anymore.
Well, hey, look, as coaches, our job is to help the person see what's already inside of them. So when she sees your dissatisfaction, I guess.
I think it's funny that you say that. I think it's a do you do human design?
I have done it in the past, yeah.
Okay, so I'm obsessed lately, and
Hmm.
Christy Inge, there's actually another
Hmm.
YouTube show that we just recently did on my channel. I am a projector. I'm a 4/1 splenic projector, and she's like, the short version is she's like, if someone has not invited you, you do not want your specific point of view, you need to stay quiet. And she's not a like be quiet
So
person.
hard,
Like
right?
everyone's like she's hardcore. We're fans of each other, but she's like it consent is required. And I'm like, got it. Lack of consent is disrespectful. That might be a better way that she's described it to me. Lack of consent, Serena, is disrespectful to them. I'm like, okay, got it, got it. So I'm learning.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Can we talk about one of the things that I think we have in common? And I don't want to assume too much. And I'm obsessed with the whole love, trust, money. But
Mm-hmm.
my coaching business, like the Genesis story, and it wasn't a coaching business originally, but my older brother was 47 years old when he passed away from cancer. And
Mm.
it was this huge reckoning. I'd been pushed out of my job. And suddenly I was like, oh my God, this is not a dress rehearsal. And
Yeah.
really, for the first time, if I'm honest, and I was 40, it just like brought everything into sharp focus of this is not a dress rehearsal. And the most important things, well, they're not things, they're relationships and love. And like,
Mm-hmm.
we're here for a good time, not a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding is that you have two daughters, one who lives here on earth and one who lives in
Yes.
heaven. We
Yes.
share. My theory is it creates a depth in a person when, of course, they've lost someone, and to lose a child
Mm-hmm.
is
It's hard.
it's
That's an
unspeakable.
understatement, but
It's
it's
like
hard.
the only thing I think everybody on planet Earth agrees on. The
Yeah.
only thing is that parent shouldn't lose a child. And
Yeah.
if you are willing to share some of that story and if and how it impacted, I don't even just want to say your business because obviously it impacted your whole life.
Hmm. You know, it I have to go back a little bit too because my first daughter is also a miracle. Both of my daughters are miracles. So my husband and I had been married for a few years and we've been trying to get pregnant, of course, and I had a miscarriage in 2017. There's a lot of loss, and I think one of the key lessons from these experiences too that I want to share with your audience is that um, loss of something that feels like it crushes you doesn't have to mean the end of you. You know, it's getting through it, allowing yourself to feel it, and then, okay, I'm ready to go now, right? And you may need to lean on someone else. But anyway, we were trying to get pregnant, had a miscarriage in 2017, and I didn't take the time. I was having the miscarriage and closing a deal at the moment. So after that, we still weren't getting pregnant and changed, went to a different doctor, and she said, hey, your tubes are blocked. You can't have children naturally. And well, we took some tests and that came out. And I was so mad, so upset at God. And I was like, God, look, I don't believe this is what you have for me, so please fix it. Like, and 6 months to the day of that prayer, found out I was pregnant with my first daughter. And so, that was clearly an answer to prayer. So we tried to get pregnant again after her, a couple of years after her, and that did happen as a surprise. And that was Aya, our second daughter, and everything was going great. And then I got the testing that said, hey, she may have trisomy 18, which is this rare disorder, chromosomal disorder. And the way the medical field talks about it is they say it's incompatible with life. And so they want off the bat to have you terminate the pregnancy.
Mhm.
So I knew my high risk because I was 42 when I
Mhm.
was pregnant with her.
Mhm.
And the first high risk doctor, she wasn't saying it explicitly, but I knew she wanted me to go in that direction. I was like, well, you're not God. I'm leaving it up to God. And we will give her the chance to live for as long as she's going to live. And so went through that journey, but it was difficult because when you have a baby with a condition like that, and you're getting ready to have the child, you have to write a birth plan and a death plan at the same time. Can you imagine that? It's, you're hoping that your child is born. And the other thing they say about trisomy 18 is that your child won't make it to birth. Well, she defied that. If your child is born, they won't breathe. She defied that. If they live for a few minutes, they won't live beyond that. Well, she lived for 2 weeks. So my daughter was a miracle, and what she showed me and all of the doctors and therapists that were caring for her, and we spent those 2 weeks in NICU, is that she showed them strength and perseverance, even though she never spoke a word. I mean, we have cards and tearful testimonies from these people about what she was able to do. And that's something I always share with people now, that your age has nothing to do with your impact. So you need to look at the time that you have right now and figure out, what can I do with who I am and what I'm doing on this earth. Don't waste the time. Um, but those 2 weeks that we were in the business, well, in NICU, we were not capable of running the business. I had a baby, had a C-section, I couldn't run the business anyway. I'm in pain. But dealing with grief during that time, we really saw who our team was, and we knew they were special before, but without us having to say, "Hey, can you pick this up and run with?" They ran the business. And then in the time after she passed away, I was not in a place where
Oh, of
I could be focused on the business at all. And
course.
frankly, it took me about 2.5 years to get back to feeling like, okay, I feel like myself and I can, go forward. I was doing the business, but I didn't really feel like myself. But this team, the team that we build on skills, but that's secondary to culture,
Mhm.
and what the person as a person is bringing to it, what their values and morals are. And so these very special people picked up the ball and ran with it. They mean so much to me and James beyond just the business, and they're our employees, our team members. And one of them actually passed away in January. So that was hurtful for us. But having a team that you select that not only builds the business, but builds you as a person, um, that is crucial. And it helped us to get through that period of loss. And one of the things for me that came out of that experience, and a lot of people may not understand it, but time was always important to me. It became even more important after I saw, hey, life can be here one moment and it can be gone, because she was doing great in NICU and they said you should be able to take her home and soon. And then I was home one day, and one night after leaving the hospital to come home and spend with our other daughter, Mina, got this call that said, hey, she's code blue. You have to come back now. And they're all trying to save her life. So, life, you don't know when your life is going to be gone. And so, after her death, I was like, you know what? I refuse to make time for people who are not going to be good and they're not going to do good things in this world. And that's not just in my personal life, that's in my business. I'm not doing any business with anyone who doesn't meet that criteria, because I'm here to do good and do things here. So I only want to have people like that around me. So that's one of the results of that experience.
Excuse me while I try not to cry. It's
Yeah.
everything you said is so it resonates so much and it's so valuable to me
Mm-hmm.
specifically today. And
Mm-hmm.
I love talking about like love, trust, money, love, trust, money. It's always in that order again and again. And then people say, what does that mean? And I'm like, I don't know how to explain it the way
Yeah.
you just explained it. There's so
Mm-hmm.
much love. If we even just start with the business aspect in the
Mm-hmm.
team, the culture that you created, like you said, you and your husband hire for skill, but like the culture there that
Mm-hmm.
they carried the business
Yeah.
and you guys, which was
Mm-hmm.
necessary and right, but like there's
Mm-hmm.
so much love in that.
Yeah.
And there's so much trust, even them in themselves, like we can handle this. It's our time. We're going to do this. And so much trust
Mm-hmm.
on your part, you and your husband, that you're in an unspeakable season of loss and all the emotions, the highs of we had the birth and she is alive
Mm-hmm.
and now, and the team will handle it. So
Mm-hmm.
much trust. And it's like, yes, money always follows the love, the trust. And
Mm-hmm.
it's such an infinity loop or a positive
Yeah.
feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes people are like, literally, what does love, trust, money formula mean? I'm like, this is what it means, this part, where it's
Yeah.
not an actual formula. It's also the way you described, like if someone doesn't want to do good stuff, like I don't want to work with them and like no judgment, no shame.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time for it. It's just
Yeah.
value that I will entertain.
Yeah. And that statement too, it's something that I sat and thought with too. I'm like, is it that I don't have time or I choose not to make time? And I'm like,
Choose.
I choose not to make time.
That's it. And
We have
unapologetic.
choices.
That's it. That's the power.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the unapologetic, just as you
Mm-hmm.
said, we have choices. Like, I don't have to. It's not subscribing to the false, like the
Mm-hmm.
martyr belief. It's not subscribing to, you know, got to make hay while the sun shines. If the money's
Right.
coming in, I got to say yes to it. It's so loving yourself,
Mm-hmm.
God, life, trusting.
Yeah.
There's plenty of clients that I like working with, don't need to entertain ones that just don't feel right.
And
Um,
they suck my energy.
Well, yeah, like it's
Yeah.
true. It's just
Yeah.
as you know, you work with all people and have for many years. Like some people are
Mm-hmm.
like, well, you just gotta take the money. And it's like,
Mm.
no,
Yeah.
no, you don't. It will cost you more in the long run, also the short
Yes.
run. It's
Absolutely.
it's a different vibe to be in that level of self-trust, business trust, life trust, God trust of like, no, I don't have to take air quotes every opportunity
Mm-hmm.
that comes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there's also something to be said too for the stage of life because, you I think my 20s, there was a lot that I allowed into my life, right? Into my
Is that what
space.
we're calling it? I like to remind people
Yes.
I drank a lot. I lived in New York City. I was 20. I never drove. Whatever.
Went to clubs. My husband and I were just talking about the fact
I
at the
miss
dinner table.
clubs.
We're like, you know what? Now we went into the movie theater a few weeks ago to see Accountant 2. And I got in there, I was like, why is this so loud? Like, do they have to do so? But that's one of the offshoot things. So now I'm in my 40s and I'm like, you know what? It might also be a stage of life because, you get settled more into who you are as a person. It's the I don't give a crap. You might not completely be there right now, but at
It's
40, you
different.
care less about what other people say when you're 30 and 20 before that. So it might also be a result of being in my 40s now.
I think it's experience. I completely agree
Yeah.
with you, except I desperately wish clubs were a thing still. I'm like, could we get a club that's like jumping at 7 p.m.? I would like to
Yeah.
be home by 9:30.
Yes. Seven.
Could we get a 7 to
I
9:30
love
party?
dancing, right? I'm
Yes.
with you on that because as long as I can be home at a certain time and in my bed, because frankly, in my 20s, I could go party and then wake up the next day to do something. If I did that now, it'll take me a whole week, probably more, to
No,
recover.
no. I like want to shout out 20-year-old Serena who like one of my favorite snapshots of 20-year-old Serena working in television was
Uh-huh.
a long work day and then somebody at the office was like, "There's a party. I'm on the list." And then we drank Hennessy because Hennessy sponsored
Mm-hmm.
the party. And I
Mm-hmm.
specifically remember getting home at like 3 or 4 and like literally leaning back on my bed and the alarm going off at like 9 and me getting up in the same clothes.
Mm-hmm. To go to work.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's acceptable at 23.
Yeah.
That is not
Yeah.
what we're doing 20 something years later. Over here,
Mm-mm.
it's also like, dude, I do miss the club. What is that thing that we're all fam in the club? I'm like, that is still true.
Yeah.
Can I go to a club?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other part James and I were talking about is that we're not standing in anybody's line at this stage. I'm
Oh my
like,
God.
you either let me in or I'm not going. So,
Now we're just talking about money. At some point, you get old enough to have money to be like, that is no longer a fun engagement. I would
yeah.
like to come in immediately and I'll pay you for that if that's what we need to do. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
Hmm.
Please, can we put a pin in it for a development project to do like club for old people? And maybe
All
in 10
right.
years where it's like, it's the 50 and up club. We've got music. They're 90s jams. And also there's no line. And also there's no
And
bounce.
no one's going to bump into you with their drink.
Oh my gosh. I knew I had to stop going out when like that like filled me with rage. I was like, it's not fun anymore. It's not fun anymore when the drunk girl's bumping into me with to your point with the drink. I'm like, I've aged out. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll talk about that, doing that business later on.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't feel like it right now, but soon. Let's circle into it. Um,
Right.
what would you say? Oh, how has love? I mean, you've literally already said it though. I'm like, how has love fueled your business growth or evolution?
You know, I think a lot of people are afraid to use the word love with business and their teams and their clients. And um, what I do doesn't isn't I'm not just doing it for the money. And when you say this to people, do it because you love to do it and the money will come. Some people don't believe you. And I probably didn't believe that when I was younger too. But the truth is when you're operating out of a space of love, you show up differently in the world and you attract different things and experiences to yourself. Um, my sister and I
Interrupt.
are, go ahead.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. For everyone listening, what Haya just described is the difference between how do I get clients and the people who have a fairly impressive flow
Mm-hmm,
of clients.
mm-hmm,
Just what you
mm-hmm.
said. Like the focus is not how do I get clients? What do I get? It's the like
Yeah.
is to work with people I enjoy doing things I like.
Yeah, and that's so true. And even if you never say to someone, if you're focused on money and you never say to someone, hey, I got to get this deal closed or whatever it is, there's a certain aura
Oh
that you're
yeah.
giving off, the desperation that other people can sense, and they don't want to be a part of that. So,
It's fact.
yeah. hmm
You were saying your
Yeah.
sister, you and your sister?
Yeah, we're working on a transaction right now. It was a former client that we worked with a couple of years ago, and she said to us, I was praying. She now has cancer.
Mm.
We helped her brother, and she was spearheading that process. She now has cancer, and she said, I was praying and asking God for help and what to do. And all of a sudden, I came out of the prayer and I thought of you guys, and she said, why didn't I think of that before? And so she called us up because she's in a place now where she needs the cash
Hmm.
and she has this property, one of her assets, and she has this property. She called us and asked us for help, but we talked with her, and she's after going through chemo, etc. She's in this place very sensitive, and she said, "I know it's not proper for in business and clients to say this, but I really love you guys." She said, and I mean that. And that's because we do business with heart. You know, we could like try to scrape every dollar, every dime and penny off the table in every deal we do, and then just do it as a transaction, or we can do it with love and genuine care and compassion,
Hmm.
so people can feel your heart when they're interacting with you. And that helps too because someone like that is actually going to refer you more likely.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Everything you just said. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that you're describing it because one of the fun challenges I have with some of
Mm-hmm.
my clients is they're like, oh, but Serena, you coach coaches. Like, it's different. I'm like, it's not. Everything you've just described is in a real estate business. It's not
Mm-hmm.
different. And as you said, like, we can sense when the person or the seller, if you will, whoever's selling is just focused on what they get, just the money,
Mm-hmm.
versus when, as you said, it's infused with love. And I
Right.
do want to point out, because some of my listeners get confused, you and your husband have a very healthy money mindset. You are content
Yes.
to be paid. You infuse everything with love, but you're not like,
Mm-hmm.
so I did it for free because she had cancer. Because
Mm-hmm.
I am sorry that she has cancer, but that does not
Right.
remove the value of your business services. You still,
Exactly. Exactly. And guess what? Remember we were talking earlier about the client attraction and who you're attracting to? There are terms in our contract with her for this property. And I said to her, hey, we're going to have to hold this amount of money back in escrow because in order for you to have this opportunity to do XYZ. And she's like, yep, I totally understand, totally get it. She needs another loan. It's going to be a loan with interest. So we're generating revenue, but we're working with a client who understands that this is a business
as it should be.
and you're in a business to make profit. You didn't get into a business to struggle, right? That wasn't the point. You can struggle by yourself without a business. So,
I did for many years. To your point,
yeah,
I'm like, here, let me work a zillion hours and make no money.
yeah,
It'll be fun. I'll complain.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for
So,
normalizing that.
hmm
I love my community. I love my community, but sometimes they're like, you don't know, you're a business coach. And I'm like, stop it. This is the difference between
yeah.
good business, as you just modeled in real estate. I'll even offer with my lawyers who I've been beefy because I'm like, the girl is overwhelmed, but also the woman,
hmm
but also like,
hmm
man, after seeing yesterday's, I'm like, she does care. She is in. She's like,
hmm
and it changed my heart.
hmm
It's
hmm
it's you we feel when the service provider, whatever service
Yeah,
it is, we feel when the service provider advocates for us,
right.
uses their experience and their expertise to the best of their ability.
hmm You
And
know, frankly, I would want someone like that. I'd want to hire someone like that versus, okay, I'm just a number, another case file.
exactly, exactly.
Because when it gets uncomfortable or whatever, the case gets too hard
Yep,
and they don't want to do it, pass it to somebody else who
yep,
will and who probably doesn't care.
yep.
So
Very interesting.
hmm
It's very interesting to me. It's everything you've just been describing, listeners. Note all the ways love is infused in your business, in your transactions, including self-love, including getting
hmm
paid and being respectful of your time and talent. Also, so
hmm
much trust. And trust is modeled, I think, in the example that you even gave, where you were like, listen, we're going to have to do this other escrow thing, and that's going to mean interest. What I mean and how that's being modeled is trust always involves clear communication.
hmm
And
hmm
sometimes when people are not yet well versed in their business language, they're like, well, they'll just trust me. I won't tell them. Like, that's not trust.
Yeah.
Trust is saying, hey, just want to make sure you're clear. This is what we're
Yeah.
doing. Not asking permission, just making sure we are informed.
Yeah. And we can always bring this back. We were talking offline about how I like to make analogies with love and dating. And you
Mm.
can bring this back to a relationship, right? With whatever partner you're in a relationship with. Imagine if that person decides to do something and, oh, they'll understand, they'll figure it out or what. How would you feel? So, you know,
Disrespected?
yeah,
Not trusted?
disrespectful on her. Why? And then ask yourself, you'll be asking, why am I in a relationship with this person if they can't even consider me? You know, Same thing in business.
Hard yes. Can I share a new analogy that I have? And it's just
Yeah,
so fun. It's totally crass. You keep it classy, I will be crass. But ready?
sure.
A lot of times in consultations,
Hmm.
coaching client, are we going to do this engagement as a coaching client? So I want to honor that I think it's different for different service providers.
Hmm.
But for coaches, a lot of my clients will tell me, and friends, and it was true for me at the very beginning of my career, like everybody just says they don't have the money for it. And I finally realized, that's a polite thing to say.
Mm.
But it's a social norm. I gotta check my budget. I
Yeah.
don't have the money. But here's what it's the equivalent of. Okay, everyone, I am crass. Here's who I am, just in case you didn't track it. Okay, many of us, not all, many of us have been on a first date with someone, and it was very clear very early on where the guy's basically like, "So we're gonna have sex later?" And sometimes literally ask that, and sometimes doesn't verbalize it, but it is very clear he's just trying to figure out if 4 hours from now he gets to do that.
Right.
It is a complete turnoff. Like, did you even?
Hmm.
Like you see my body, but do you know my name, sir? Do you even do
I know,
you
right?
can you repeat my last name? Like not literally not feeling seen. And then
Hmm.
the analogy that I'm so thrilled with is, and then when it's end of dinner or whatever, like, do you want to come over? It's like, oh no, I don't do that on a first date.
Hmm.
Guess what? I
Yeah.
totally will. I'm lying. It's just
Hmm.
a matter
Hmm.
of this has turned me off. That is a polite,
Right.
and it's
Right.
like, no, no, no. There have been times that there's just been so much connection or so much fun or whatever where it's like, yeah,
Hmm.
I choose this consciously. But, when someone's like just trying to rush and not getting to know you or make you feel
Yeah.
seen or in connection, it's just like, yeah, no.
I hear that analogy. I may not be the one to say it that way, but well, maybe not in public, but I probably would say that outside of, a recording. But yeah, you said it, and I think that's totally on point.
It's just,
It's a
it's
turn
like,
off. Yeah.
it's a turn off. And so it's like,
Yeah.
if you keep hearing that, it's not because they don't have the money, it's because that energy was so
Hmm.
off-putting and nobody's going to be like, I just don't trust you for the following reasons.
Right.
Just say, oh, I don't have money.
Right. And guess what? People, they will find the money for the things that they really want.
Exactly. Exactly my point.
Yeah.
Like I
Hmm.
didn't sleep with everyone on the first date, but certain
Yeah.
things I felt like it when I really wanted to. Like
Yeah.
it's rules are
And
not
the thing is too with that dating analogy too, when you do it when after someone feels like they've just been, you know, they want what they want and you're not factored in, but when you do it for the reasons that you want to do it, you don't have the regret afterwards.
exactly. It is
But
a
yeah.
conscious
Yeah.
investment, if you will, of like, I
Hmm.
choose this for me. It is
Hmm.
fun for everyone experience as opposed
Right.
to, oh no, I just gotta check my budget slash run away immediately. I'll call you. And by I'll call you. What I mean is I'll never call you. Okay,
That
bye.
means I just want to get off the phone. Yeah.
Totally. This was horrifying for me. Excuse me. It's
Yeah.
totally that. It's so
Yeah.
fascinating. It's the opposite of love and trust, and therefore
Hmm.
funny.
Well, you know what my husband said to me years ago, and I always remember this, and I share it with people when I'm training them.
Mhm.
You need a deal, you don't need that deal. That's also a play sometimes too, because I think we get into this space in business where I got to get every single deal that's out there to be had. You don't. And maybe that one wasn't the right one, but the other
Okay.
part of that is you have to also take responsibility for your part. What did you not do and say to have that person want to say yes to you? You
To
know?
feel comfortable, to feel
Yeah.
the love,
Hmm.
literally,
Right.
not using that word in a
Hmm.
consult but yeah, and
Yeah.
establish trust so that it's
Hmm.
safe to invest their money and their time.
Right. Hmm.
So good. Um, we are running out of time. I knew I would want to talk to you forever because hi,
Sure.
easy.
Yes, I
Um,
know.
tell people, everyone, Hayya has a quiz about, tell people a bit about the quiz and then
Yeah.
Instagram where they can find you. And everything's going to be linked in the YouTube. Like we've got it all linked up so they can just click a
Hmm.
button. But also, some people are listening on the podcast. So tell them a
Yeah.
bit.
So it's a financial freedom quiz, basically, because frankly, I'm the kind of person I don't like to ask anyone's permission to have time for myself. And a lot of women don't have that, that flexibility to do what they want when they want, how they want. And we want to teach women how to do that through real estate investing. So the quiz helps you to identify what your type is and then what is the next step to take. And we can help guide you. So if you go to my Instagram profile, Hayya_LM, HAYYA_LM, you'll see the link to the quiz. I invite you to take it and see what your result comes out saying, and then take the next step. Don't just sit there and think about it.
Oh,
Do
I will
something
remind
about it, right?
everyone. I'm a coach, and everyone's like,
Yeah.
"How'd you make all your money? How'd you do this?" Hiring coaches, not
Yeah.
reinventing the wheel. And
Mm-hmm.
I am evangelical about coaching and paying for
Yes.
coaching because it's also about framework. Like one of my favorite things is the first coach I hired to teach me how to do consults. And to be very
Mm-hmm.
clear, it changed the game because I was able to
Mm-hmm.
take people through a consult as opposed to like,
Right.
you seem cool. I'd like to help you. Please give me thousands of dollars. Go.
If you feel like it, right? With that underscore, because if you're how you're saying it, you're like, if you feel like
That was it.
it, right?
It was
Yeah.
I wish I never recorded my early consultations, but maybe I'll reenact them someday. It would make a great YouTube series. Just a
Yeah.
great, wow, that was awful, Serena.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that with everyone. Everyone,
Absolutely.
again, links in profile. If you're listening, just get to Instagram and find Hayya, HAYYA_LM, like love money. That's not
Oh
what it
yeah, I
stands
like that. I'm gonna start using that.
for. I'm like, not
Love
what it
money.
stands for, but easy to remember. Let's just go with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
What did you love most about the event that we were at, that we met at? Final question for me.
I am an energy person.
Mhm.
And I love the fact that I was in that room with people like you and other women. It was a lot of women, mostly women, some men
Mhm.
in there, but the energy coming out of it, just being in a space where I didn't have to give anyone anything. I could just be there and get what I needed and absorb all of that positivity. I loved that. And well, there was great strategy there too, but I loved the energy there because when you're in your business working day to day, you're not surrounded necessarily by all of that. And so it was a great time away to absorb.
Totally
How about
agree.
you?
Happy to answer it. I want to tell everyone where we were. Just because I'm
Yeah.
like, if everyone's like, where were they? I'm like, listen,
Yes.
it was called Move to Millions, and it was Darnell Jervey Harmon. So
Hmm.
Darnell's Move to Millions. If I were gonna chat with her, which actually I'm gonna chat with her next week, about on
Hmm.
here on YouTube. So come back, you guys. But I'm like, I think it should be called Revival because for me, my
Yes.
favorite thing is everything you just said. It
Hmm.
was a revival. It's not like
Hmm.
I had some wild new ideas or wild new direction. For me, it was
Hmm.
like this restoration nourishment that
Yes.
just
Yes.
allowed me to be like, okay, I am closing doors on the Boom Boom Room, which is almost 3 years old. It's a program that I've done.
Hmm.
I am
Hmm.
opening the next program as a cohort in
Hmm.
fall. It was a revival.
Hmm.
And I was
Absolutely.
blissed out, loved meeting you, loved everyone I met, also loved there
Yeah.
were very few men in the room, but for me that was also very healing. Um,
Hmm.
to just delight in these women
Yes.
who are like love to be surrounded by these women who are also just
Hmm.
booming their businesses. It was a balm for my
Yeah.
entire soul with a shared value focus of, let's be well, let's be wealthy, let's move money
Right.
in the world in service.
Yeah. And it wasn't an either or either. Be
No, no,
well or be wealthy.
it was
Both.
that was the
Yes.
like that is our shared
Yes.
value, and that's
Hmm. Yeah.
it was great. It was actually a gift from a client, and
Oh, yeah.
I also just love how like the divine works, and that I
Hmm.
never had heard of Darnell before, and so I just love that God like literally put me in the room through a client. And so for everyone,
Yeah.
closing notes, um, God will put you wherever you need to be. You just have to like do your part,
Yes.
like take the quiz, hire a coach,
Hmm.
subscribe to my YouTube channel, show up
Yes.
again, like whatever it is, it's like, listen, we don't work alone. There's the divine, but also the divine will not like pick us up and carry us if we're in a closet. Hope.
Yeah, and he's waiting for you to actually move your feet,
Yeah, that.
right?
Sometimes
So,
people are like, I'm manifesting. And I'm like, no, you're hoping. And that's a very important start. That is a very important start. It is insufficient, usually, to create all of the glorious things that you know.
Can I just say something before we go? I know we're out of time. So,
Yeah.
in my days as a coach, and I'm still a coach, I just don't have a coaching business. But one of the things that frustrated me the most about coaches is that we manifest and all this stuff and we're energetic. But I felt like a lot of coaches had their heads up here and their feet were not actually
Mhm.
moving. Like,
Mhm.
manifesting is great. You have to move.
Yeah, that would
So,
be manifesting.
yes,
I think some people
yes.
play in fantasy
Mm-hmm.
and they call it manifest. And
Mm-hmm.
um, that was probably a gift again from Darnielle's event. Is I was like, one of the reasons I'm closing the Boom Boom Room is that energetic container is complete. Like it is
Mm-hmm.
being officially completed. And the
Mm-hmm.
new one, I believe, is going to be called Enriched. Not positive yet,
Mm-hmm.
as in business enriched, but it's like unapologetic emphasis on like
Yeah.
to be of service, you will move your feet. And as you actually
Yes.
modeled and shared so vulnerably, so of course, thank you. When you
Mm-hmm.
lost your daughter, one of your daughters, like there was a full time out. It's not move your
Mm-hmm.
feet like we were back at work 2 days later. Absolutely not.
Sit still, sit down.
Like
Yeah.
there are times that we do not move our feet. I think the trick
Yeah.
is, as you said, so often, so many coaches lie to themselves, which is a very human
Mm-hmm.
thing. I do it. I promise I've done it already today. But like I'm not ready yet. And like the I'm not ready yet carries on for years. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, we need to
Mm-hmm.
pull our head out of our ass and be of service. And that means
Right.
we go before we're ready. And we do take time out for sincere moments, but otherwise
Mm-hmm.
move our feet.
Yep. Yep.
Mm. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you. So much good stuff here. I can't wait for your audience to hear it.
Thank
I
you.
loved it. Thank you.